Good evening. I'm calling to order a special city council meeting for the city of Hayden, Idaho. It is 5 p.m. May we get a roll call of council members, please?
Council President Roeder?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Here.
And Councilmember
Yes.
Brady?
Okay, we have a quorum. We're going to roll right into our workshop. We have our Public Safety Commission members here tonight. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. We're going to discuss law enforcement services, the level and potential contract. And with that, I'll turn it over to staff.
We're trying to figure out where the best spot to be to present. Do you think up there? Okay, yes, then she'll go there.
The unfortunate part of sticking me at a podium is I do like to move around, but I will try to maintain stationary.
And I think for the record, we do have one commission member on the virtual
Okay.
meeting, just that's why I think there's.
He's
Not on yet.
Oh, he's not on yet. Okay. Will you let me know, Abby, just to make sure that person can hear us?
Yes.
So for those of you that don't know me, I am the Hayden City Attorney. My name is Fonda Jovic. I've been serving as a city attorney for a number of years. I'm going to kick this off today, this discussion, just because it's rooted around a contract, and contracts kind of seem to be the city attorney thing. So I think all of you were provided ahead of time a draft copy of the law enforcement services agreement that was provided by the county to us. And I think you all have in front of you, there's an option 1, 2, and 3. And we thought it would be most productive to have a joint meeting, a joint workshop with the Public Safety Commission and the council, so that we don't end up just kind of bouncing around of different ideas. Like, you guys can all work together, you can strategize, you can ask questions, you can talk to each other. But the goal for today really is talking through what are the negotiables that we can take a hard look at on the law enforcement services draft contract that was provided. Those negotiables are really rooted in the back on Exhibit A. If there's language in the agreement itself that you want to ask me questions about, please feel free to do so. If there's language you want to push back on, please let me know what that language is and where it is, and we'll talk about it. But this is really going to revolve around two things. One, I think you can tell from the law enforcement services agreement that was provided, the county is moving more towards right, wrong, or indifferent. They're moving more towards this model of, we have a basic agreement that we would use within any city. You set your budget and you plug and play the level of service that you want built into that agreement. I'm not here to comment on that approach. I'm just saying that's what we have in front of us. You have approved your budget, an amount that the city is willing to spend on law enforcement services for this next year, and that's all we're going to focus on right now, is get through this agreement to get 1 year in place to protect the city. And then we can, as soon as this is approved by both the city council and the county, you can certainly come back and start talking about other arrangements, other options, other forms of law enforcement. Nothing's precluding that. That's just really not the goal of today. The goal of today is, can we take what has been presented to us, and how do you feel about building a level of service around that, consistent with the budget that's already been approved by the city, and or finding other money, but that's up to you. There's two components to this. There's and Lisa and I have been working rather hard on building the two components out for you today for your decision points. There's the financial component, and then there's the level of service accountability. So I think we need to talk about and build both of those pieces today. Your financial component is based on the information you have in front of you. How do you want to build that level of service and give that presentation back to the county? And second to that is, what do we want to do for accountability on the backside to make sure that the level of service that you are paying for is being provided, and sort of build a list of data points that would be important to you. I don't want to call out Councilman Roeder, but he's been an advocate for the idea of tracking, geo-tracking on cars. That is an opportunity, a data point, should you all agree that's important to add to the list. There are other data-driven tools that you can use, like hours of services performed on behalf of the city of Hayden. There's quite a bit of data that you can get from the sheriff's office on whatever, however frequently you would like it, on calls for service, number of calls for service as compared to the rest of the county, types of calls for service. We can talk about building those data points of accountability as to what's important to you in relationship to that, and how often would you like to receive that data. So Lisa and I are hoping by the end of this meeting, we've worked out amongst yourselves an acceptable presentation back to the county on Exhibit A regarding, number of deputies, what you're gonna do with the cars, whether or not you wanna continue talking about a lieutenant or not, and then this overhead cost. If you've studied options 1, 2, and 3 that have been provided to you by the county in any depth, you will notice some similarities between option 1 and option 2. And I'm just gonna kind of give you a launch point for discussion here. And then option 3 has a variable that changes, which is the overhead number. They add 40% of overhead for options 1 and 2, and then they've taken that overhead up to 60% for option 3. That is an example of an area where you could give us direction to say, here's the financial commitment we're willing to proceed with, but with regards to overhead, we need to have a better understanding of why that is 60% instead of 40% when we change options, because we've not gotten a satisfactory answer to that question. So that's just an example. It looks like our other commissioner has joined us. Can you hear me okay? You're on mute.
Yes, I can. I can hear you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. We can hear you
I was
also.
gonna say, maybe we could just pause for a minute, because we have some new people at the table that, this is our first meeting and first time as a commissioner, and maybe we could just go around and introduce each other so our council members know you.
Great idea. I just dove right in like, let's, head first.
Dave, maybe we can start with yourself.
Sure, what are you looking for as far
Just
as
your name, maybe your background.
serial number? My name's Dave Hager. I've been in law enforcement for 29 years. I currently serve as a captain with the Coeur d'Alene Police Department, retired from the police department in Mesa, Arizona, about a 500,000 person city. And I also do consulting work with agencies for logistics, personnel assessments, and building size, those types of needs.
And Dave, is it okay if I just mention now the real importance of maintaining our focus on just this contract and not branching into future needs while we have Mr. Hagar with us, is because he would have a conflict of interest in discussing anything related to any other law enforcement options if the city of Coeur d'Alene were to be mentioned. So I just want to be really careful that we respect the fact that he wants to provide this service for us. But for today's purposes, we really need to focus on this contract for 1 year. Are we okay with that? Thank you.
Next.
I was just figured that everybody just, do
Go
the
ahead.
council members need to introduce themselves? I mean, it might be helpful for them to hear along.
Go around the room. Councilwoman White, go ahead.
Matthew Roeder.
Oh, guess we're going this way.
Council president, I've lived in Hayden for 47 years, and that's what I'm about.
I'm Brian Harrison. I've been in law enforcement for 13 years. I'm currently a patrol lieutenant for a neighboring agency. I've lived in Hayden since 2012.
I'm Raleigh Mason. I'm transplant. I've been here since, I started coming in 12. It took me till 18 to get a house spot. But I only have 40 years in law enforcement. And I started out as a patrolman and then ended up as the elected official. And I live in Hayden because of low crime statistics along with Coeur d'Alene.
I'm John Spencer. I'm the chair of the Hayden Safety Commission, 5-year resident of Hayden. Prior to that, I'm a casino in Washington State SKB. Retired military.
Mehdi Priest, Hayden City Councilman, finished up my first term, been here 32 years.
Tom Shaver, 2 years into my first term. No former experience in law enforcement, but I am ex-Air Force.
I'm Sandy White, and I've been serving in Hayden for a term here, and yeah, I'm excited to have you guys help us and give us input.
And then maybe Sean.
We have online.
Oh, yes.
Shane.
Sean, can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hey. Yeah, I'm Sean Meyer. I've been in public service since 2008. The first half was as a fireman. Second half as a peace officer, a transplant also. I came from the San Bernardino area of California. I've been up here for 5 years, and I'm still currently working as a peace officer.
Excellent.
All right, let's roll.
So I guess I would ask you to tell me where you would like to start. I mean, on the financial side seems to be the most practical place to start. And I don't know if you want to start with your thoughts on the different options to begin with. Yes, Mr.
Why don't I make a suggestion? I anticipate, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, team here, that probably most of the conversation will be around the services and the money. Maybe it would be faster just to go through the contract page by page, just say, for example, does anybody have an issue with anything on page 1, page 2?
That's fine.
That would be, to me, the small fruit that we can knock out. That way the majority of the document's out, because I have some questions myself.
So have you all had a chance to review, excuse me, the written contract that was provided? Is there language in there that any of you are uncomfortable with or have questions about?
I have one question. It doesn't appear, of course, I could have missed it. It doesn't appear as though the mayor or the city administrator would have the right to request a change out of an officer if he wasn't someone that was pleasing the mayor and the city staff.
That's a great question. Does the commission and/or the rest of the council want to talk a little bit about whether or not the rest of you have that concern, and if you'd like to have some of that language built into this agreement?
So Raleigh, under paragraph 1.3.a, I think that addresses your thing. Right now, as it stands, the county has complete control over that. So,
Yep.
Just because it's there doesn't mean that we have
right,
to just say,
absolutely. So,
No, he's correct.
so great question. How does council and the commission feel about that?
I think it's a good idea. If for some reason there is a sheriff, a deputy in this case, who, through whatever means, becomes a concern to the city, I think the city should be able to have a strong input as to whether or not that deputy is replaced with another. It could be a number of reasons.
definitely.
Yeah, but if it comes to the point where the same individual is coming up with complaints from this or that, or for whatever reasons that are not in the best interest of the city, shall we say, and that the citizens maybe don't have the faith in the person, that we should be able to have a strong say in whether or not that individual continues.
So under, on page 6, under 1.10A, where it says the city, or should say the mayor and/or his designee and the sheriff and/or his designee shall serve as agreement administrators to review performance and resolve operational problems. We could add a sentence that says to include input by the mayor and/or his designee related to any performance concerns of a specific deputy, to potentially include removal of that deputy from city service. Something along those lines. Would that be satisfactory?
Yeah, I think so, because we're dealing with a pool. That's what I've been told by the SO, that they have a pool of people that they put in and out. I mean, contrary to what my understanding was when we went before the public, that we were going to have 10 people hired, designated to us, but that's not the case, so I think.
What section did you mention, Rod?
It's on page 6, 1.10 subsection A, where it talks about agreement administrators. So while Lisa's been negotiating the financial aspect of this agreement with the county commissioners, I've been working on the backside with the sheriff's office to come up with to have a better understanding of the operational aspect of your current agreement, and to come up with methods for accountability that really, I think there's a lot of options, and hopefully you guys can come up with a list today. It is my understanding, irrespective of what's happened in the past, however many deputies you choose in this plug-and-play contract today, given the financial commitment, they will be designated to and have been, but will continue to be designated to the city of Hayden. So I love you bringing up that concern of a pool. That is not what it's supposed to look like moving forward, but we could pin that down even further.
I think we actually have to have a pool, because if one of our designated deputies breaks a leg, has something like that, we still want that level of service. And so while I understand what Raleigh's saying, I think there's a certain element that's there for a pool. If one of our deputies wants to promote or do some of those things, we have to understand there's going to be movement in and out.
Great.
Yeah, we just want to be able to maintain the level.
Sure.
Dave.
Yeah,
But we should have some choice
yeah.
in who we have.
I think that one of the beauties of having a sheriff's department is a sheriff is accountable to the people. And I think that it's perhaps counterproductive for the city to be able to discipline or pull people out. I think that we could have a venue, or not a venue, but a path where we could talk to the sheriff and let him deal with the things like that.
Well, let me speak to this point
Okay.
from past experience. The constitutional thing is all fine, but when you raise your hand, you take the oath that you are going to enforce the laws of the state and the federal government. So you don't want to get away from that. Number two, a chief of police serves, and he'll tell you the same, at the pleasure of the mayor and the city council. Having been one and having arrested one of the city council people, you can have your job in jeopardy rather rapidly. So I think the accountability is just as good through a police department as it is a sheriff's department. I'm afraid that some of that talk just goes away from where we need to be. If you're going to take an oath and you're going to swear to do something, if you don't do it, you're not any better than crook on the street.
Yeah, so before Ed talks, so it sounds like, Fonda, we've got some language we're gonna put in, so the
Yep.
city has a lever to communicate to the
concern.
sheriff that we have an issue with some performance, and that, as in paragraph 13A, they will then address it.
And there's the follow-up paragraph on page 6 of 1.10B, which talks about referral of unresolved problems. So
Okay.
problems rise to the level of, inability to resolve.
Yep.
Then it can go to the sheriff and/or the county commissioners for resolution. So I think you have multiple layers of opportunity for resolution of any issue built into the contract.
Ed, anything to add to
Ed,
this
did you have
data point?
anything to add?
Well, yeah, just to comment a little bit. The length of the sheriff term is what, 4 years? The length of the mayor term is 4 years. Both are elected by the people. So however it is, if there's an issue, then the police chief is under the auspices of the elected mayor and elected council, just as the sheriff is elected. So if there's lack of performance or unhappiness either way, the mayor and council can be replaced just as well as the sheriff.
Exactly.
All right, so,
Less votes.
Yes,
You made the statement, and I believe you said dedicated deputies.
yes.
Where in the contract does it define what a dedicated deputy is?
So I think what we're gonna be looking at is probably, so if you look at paragraph 4 on Exhibit A on the back, where it says the county personnel assigned to the city, so they're talking about assignment of those deputies to the city, may be unavailable at times due to usual and customary training, vacation, and sick leave. When such assigned personnel are unavailable, calls for service will be responded to by appropriate personnel at the discretion of the county. I think that's what Mr. Hagar was discussing with regards to, you're gonna have your assigned deputies, and then you have the pool available to fill in to maintain level of service when those deputies are
So we're
unavailable.
not using the term dedicated.
They used assigned. Would you like me to adjust that to dedicated?
Yeah, with some,
How about assigned / dedicated? Same.
I like the word dedicated. I think it shows more dedication to the city of Hayden for their services.
are there other pages, Tom?
Well, Fonda, you just brought up a good point I didn't think about before. When I look at the text of this, and I see the word county, I think of Board of Commissioners. When I see the word sheriff, I think of the sheriff. It's really the sheriff who's accountable to us.
Right, let me explain that to you. I think there's some confusion. The commissioners cannot tell the sheriff to do anything. They only have control of his budget.
I agree, and so
So,
you're following with my thought.
That's exactly what you're
So
right on
the
target.
the commissioners are involved, he's correct. The commissioners are involved with the financial aspect of establishing the contract related to the finances. The sheriff's responsibility is to execute the operation of the agreement.
So in the auspice, in this contract here then, where I read the word county, am I to mentally say that's the sheriff?
Well, we could clean that
Or
up.
should we clean that up and make it say sheriff?
So we could clean it up when it's financial related and could include the commissioners, it will say county. And where it is strictly operations, it would say sheriff.
Absolutely.
Okay,
You're right on top.
I think that makes sense.
Good call, Tom.
Gotta give you credit for that.
And we're all okay with the explanation of the commissioners are involved in the financial aspect of this,
Yes.
the sheriff executes the operation.
Yes.
Okay. I shouldn't use the word execute either, so apologize.
It's like headshots in photography, you just
Don't
do
say
it.
headshot in
All
photos.
right, so
Any other word, I'm sorry, Mr.
I
Mayor.
was gonna say, so Raleigh hit something on page 2. Can we call page 1 and page 2 in the rearview mirror then? No other concerns there?
I don't think.
Yeah, I also covered page 5 in all of that, so.
We're gonna get in there now.
Well, the reason I ask is because my first point's on page 3.
Okay, go to page 3.
And actually, it starts on page 2. It's 1(3)D.
Did you say D as in dog
D is in Delta, yeah.
or Delta? Sorry, different.
Ownership of vehicles and equipment purchased by the county shall be retained by the county. So I guess my question is, if this is a one-year contract and the city elects not to give capital expenses to the contract, then
I
it doesn't,
think
then
we
it
will-
doesn't apply.
We circle back and amend that depending on what this team does with the vehicles.
And then, so then, part B of this point, and my question is going to be to council and the commission, how do you feel about that?
Yep.
Do you want, if we give the county money, they purchase equipment, are we just gonna let them keep it?
Is that it? Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, you and I have spoken about this offline, and I'm in favor of the city retaining its capital equipment. Period.
Understanding right now that's vehicles.
Correct.
Okay, but, oh, go ahead.
So I think the wording again kind of gets back to the difference between county and sheriff here. Ownership of vehicles and equipment purchased by the county, are they talking about vehicles that they want to give us credit for? Because I would assume that it's a non sequitur if that's right, that any vehicles the county purchased, we wouldn't have an interest in
No.
them anyway.
Correct.
So,
I think
so
we
what
would-
we're looking at here is vehicles
City is
purchased,
funded.
giving credit to.
We would clarify this paragraph depending on what you decide with options 1, 2, and
Right.
3 in the vehicles.
Okay.
Yes.
But
that
I
is
assume you
correct.
guys want some direction. Generally, if the council says whether it's a vehicle we bought in the past or whether it's a vehicle we buy under this contract, we do or we do not want to let the county have it.
I'll go right along with Tom. I will not vote to give away those 4 or 5 vehicles, whatever it is.
Father, can we change the language instead of purchase to be funded by? Because obviously, they're going to conduct the purchase through their vendors.
Yeah, that is
But
correct.
if we use funded, then it's funded by us or it's funded by the county, and I think that would delineate.
I think that's great. How does everybody else feel about that?
Good.
Sounds like we're good.
One more thing on the vehicles, though.
Yes, sir.
And have to take this into consideration. And we'll get to this when we get to this overhead, 40 or 60% on the overhead. We don't have control of these vehicles. We've got a guy that's working this beat and he lives in Worley. Or he could be living in Spokane. Or he could be living in Bonner County. And we buying those cars. And what do we got, 10 square miles? I think that's what we
Roughly,
have.
yes.
So those cars should have an expected life way further than if this car is going to Worley every night and he goes in service in Worley. He gets in that car, he goes 10-8, he's on the books. So maybe it's time to let him have the damn car. But the overhead over the car, which we could get some help from some people that are today actively in that end of it. I've been out of it since 14, so.
Well, I might be
Think about
incorrect
it.
in this, but as a capital asset, it's amortized over time. So it's constantly losing value. Who's swallowing that value? Is it the county or is it us? I think it's us. And if we're doing that, then, and we give these cars back to them, it's like lost money as far as I'm concerned.
That's why if this overhead gets correct, we get out of the automobile business. And we pay a fee. We're already paying the salary for the man, and his overhead is built in here.
So you're saying if they lower the overhead on we're getting ahead, but.
I know,
We are jumping.
that's how this stuff goes.
Yeah, just something to
Okay,
think about.
maybe we can shelve the details of the discussion till later on, but you see my point.
Can we just put a pin in this language in the
Yes.
agreement until we finish the financial piece? I think it'll take care of itself.
All right, and then, so if we're done with that one, my second question on this page is 14B. Fonda, can we, for the layman in us, talk about what special supplies may be? I'm not.
I think those are really, city code-driven code books.
Okay,
That's what comes to mind right out of the gate. Anything specific you wanted them to hand out, like,
okay. So the
business
key there
cards
is in the
or
name of the city.
anything
Alright.
in the name of the city.
Thank you.
But you have separate code books related to city ordinance violations
And citations.
and citations, yes.
Anybody else that got questions on page 3 then? Okay, if you don't mind, we'll move to 4. Any questions on 4? While they're looking, Fonda, I have one question under 17A. Is there any liability or anything that we need to worry about as a city? If we're gonna say we're gonna hold the county harmless, is this language strong enough to protect our taxpayers if
I would like
rogue
to
deputy
say,
happens or something?
I wanted to get through this conversation first, but I intend to make some modifications to that paragraph.
Okay, because we've had in the past some issues,
Yes.
not us Hayden, but
Yes.
some of the parties involved. There's issues, there's lawsuits.
Yeah, I want to work with the county attorney on some different language entirely for that paragraph.
Thank
What
you.
paragraph was that?
Paragraph 1.7A.
Had that marked.
Okay, anybody else got anything for page 4?
You got mine.
Okay, at page 5, anybody?
Let's see.
Page 6, anything?
So page 6, we worked a little bit already on subparagraph A under 1.10. Okay.
And then finally, page 7.
Can we go back, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, page 5, audits and inspections about records, reports, and documents with respect to all matters covered by this agreement shall be subject to inspection, review, or audit. Does that mean that we don't have to file a public records request, that we can, who can go and look at this information?
Yeah, and it says during the term of this agreement and 3 years after termination, unless such records are exempt from disclosure under Idaho Code 74-101.
So Matt, it's county or city, the way I read it, either one of us.
It's by county or city during the term of the agreement.
Right, but I'm asking is, under this agreement, could I go down to the county sheriff's office and say, I want to see certain records?
No, because remember, no city council member acts unilaterally, so it'd be a direction of the council on behalf of the entire city that you want to see something, and then they would designate you as the person to go get X, Y, Z.
So we wouldn't have to file a public records request and then maybe be charged for that?
Correct. I'm understanding through this portion of the agreement, but we could ferret that out a little clearer, under, what form would they like this request made, and is there a limit? Okay.
we'll move on to Exhibit A.
Yes, so Exhibit A, again, is probably gonna need some work, maybe after we get through the financial conversation, but if anybody has any comments on it now, let's get them out in the open.
I do.
Great.
But I'll yield if anybody else wants to go first. Okay, so my question is, paragraph 3, do we want to have any language where the opposite happens of the last sentence? What I mean that specifically is that this says the sheriff at his discretion can temporarily divert deputies and equipment from the area of the city to other locations. Do we want to have a like paragraph saying?
I think you need to read the rest of it. It says for specific emergency situations, so I think we want to be clear.
Right,
It
That's
says
pretty standard.
Right, but do we want to say also, in addition to that, that the sheriff may at his discretion take county assets to respond for specific emergency situations within the city? In other words, we probably believe that is going to be the case regardless, but is it worth putting into the contract?
I think that's going to happen naturally, but that's up to you guys for
It's
discussion.
just a question. I'm
It's
not a
like-
lawyer.
And maybe Mr. Hagar could comment on that, how that op works.
For general police operations, take for example the Canfield incident. We had 150 officers from 3 states, federal government, and everyone showed up on or off duty. And so if it's a true emergency, I think you're going to receive that. I don't know if putting it in the contract, I mean, I think they would be in breach of contract if they didn't provide a basic level of service without that sentence in there. I think we would be okay with that.
Okay, it was just a question. And then my next was paragraph 4, where it says will be responded to by appropriate personnel at the discretion.
And I think that's another one we want to change the sheriff, not county, but
Right, but I was maybe more direct language, responded to by deputy. I don't know, I was just looking for something more direct than appropriate personnel at the discretion.
So one of the things I would suggest, so when law enforcement agencies, for example, enter into an MOU with the school district to provide SROs, we generally put a limit on theirs. If the SRO is going to be absent for more than 2 weeks, the city shall provide an alternate officer for that. And because again, there's going to be vacation, sick time and things like that. And I don't think it's necessarily feasible at times to grab somebody for half of a shift or maybe one full shift without notice. So I think if we put language in there, if it's going to be more than X, that they be replaced for that service.
so, for instance, when it says when such assigned personnel are unavailable, we would add for longer than,
And I think that's a discussion that council and the commission.
yep,
So that had come up at one of the last Public Safety Commission meetings that I attended, and I missed the one previous to this. And one of the things that we had discussed was FMLA. So hey, if we're gonna extend beyond 12 weeks, that we have to backfill that, or the contract gets deducted a corresponding dollar amount. I think that there's some validity to a shorter time frame that's reasonable, say 2 to 4 weeks. But it sounded to me like in discussions with a member of the sheriff's office that there had been times where the city of Hayden was waiting for example, someone to graduate the police academy to fill a patrol spot, to then free someone up that was perhaps more senior to come fill a Hayden spot. And that to me, we're simply not getting what we're paying for at that point in time.
I would make a recommendation, any more than 2 weeks, 80 working hours, I think is appropriate.
right. I think that sounds appropriate, but it's up to you guys.
How's council feel about that?
2 weeks or 80 consecutive working
I
hours.
go with Dave on that.
Okay, thank you. And the last thing I had, Fonda, was paragraph 5. I'm not big on the be heard first and then be allowed to leave. That's completely reassembling our agenda. I certainly can prioritize law enforcement if they need it, but I would rather, both for the presence and the partnership that we have with the sheriff's department, which is very important to me. I love seeing them here. I know it may not be the most satisfying work for them to watch a meeting, but to be part of our community, I'd rather not have them go first and then bounce.
It's discussion point.
That's my preferences,
I
Mayor.
think you're on target. It's part of community policing for him to be part of this community.
And I think there's a lot that can be learned by sitting through a council meeting, the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever, but you get a flavor for the city and the challenges.
How do you guys feel about that, council?
I think under the current political climate, it's a great idea to have a deputy here through the meeting. Because
Absolutely.
things do happen. So I think that from a safety point of view, I think it's a great idea.
So-
Two birds with one stone.
So to that, Matt, is a deputy enough, or is it more of a command presence if they're gonna give a report? Does it matter, maybe once a month, it's the person briefing council if we desire that, and the other meeting would be just a deputy?
It'd be their choice, as long as we have.
I think reports is a whole nother matter that we need to get into.
Okay, all right, so we're satisfied with the deputy then?
Well,
I just think
a
a
deputy is a
deputy-
presence, command staff is a report.
Okay,
So I think those are two different issues.
right.
And you should talk about how often, if at all, you want verbal reporting in addition to what we're gonna talk about is sort of already built stats that come to you regularly. And we can get into that when we get to the level of service discussion. Deputy presence is always great. Most cities have deputy presence of some, law enforcement presence of some kind at their meetings, so.
Well, I sorely miss it. When we had it, it was not something I took for granted.
I think what happened and what does tend to happen is you have deputies who it is not, they are wonderful police officers, but they are not public speakers. And when they get asked in the middle of a meeting, do you have anything to add? It's really uncomfortable for them to say no, and they feel like they're failing. Whereas if it's orchestrated ahead of time, deputy presence is not going to be asked from the dais if they have something to add. And it's pre-organized that command staff will be here for reports. I think that's important.
We can make that adjustment.
Yeah.
That was all mine. Did anybody have anything else for Exhibit A?
I,
I think they're gonna. So Fawn, I assume that last point, we're gonna update Exhibit A?
Yeah, I made notes
Thank
all
you.
over my version.
Thank you. Sounds like the low-hanging fruit's done, Fonda. Let's get to the heavy lifting.
Let's do the hard work.
Yeah.
I am, irrespective of the financial outcome of this, you are going to want some accountability measures. Do you want to tackle that next, or you want to tackle finances?
Did you say
Totally up to you.
Reporting or finances?
Talk about item 6.
Well, financial commitment and what the level of service based on your financial commitment is going to look like, based on options 1, 2, and 3, or data points for accountability moving forward to make sure the level of service is being performed. We can talk about either one of those.
Let's do reporting. I think it'll be easier.
Okay. So there's a variety of options. I think we might want to go around the room and just have each of you indicate what kind of data points might be important for you to see moving forward. I didn't mean to pick on Council President Roeder. He has been pretty vocal about the idea of the tracking the cars. I was able to get quite a bit of data from the sheriff's office, just trying to get an understanding of what level of service is currently being provided. One of the things I was able to get is a summarized, and I can give this to all of you, calls for service for the entire year of 2024 for the city of Hayden as compared to the rest of the county. And it is 22,011 calls for the city of Hayden as compared to 64,275 for the total county. So you were 35%, just under 35% of the overall calls for service. That is helpful because it came back to us in negotiations that some of this overhead percentage was hinging off of total calls for service. So there's that type of data, total calls. There is available, and I showed this to some council members previously, the sheriff's office keeps number of hours that detectives work in all of the particular cities every month. This can be produced to you every single month. So this is an option for detective hours. To note that you're getting about 307.25 hours of detective time per month and 140 is full-time. So paying for one full-time detective and getting, but that's, I mean, this is all up to you. These are just data points available to provide to you if it sounds like something you might want to see. This probably could be replicated for all of your dedicated patrol deputies. I think it used to occur and it stopped in some changeover of staff at the sheriff's office, but you know, an opportunity for them to say, I spent this many hours providing service to the city of Hayden per month. Maybe this could be replicated for that. There are also, yes.
To your point, I think you're picking on something that might be a bigger question. I personally know that, well, let me say that. I like the work that was put into our current report. I like it a lot.
Yeah, that can stay too.
Are we,
Add to it.
is council want more than that, or, because the way that the,
Is your commission
Exhibit A
familiar
reads-
with those visual reports?
what's that?
Is your commission familiar
Yes.
with those? Okay, just making sure.
The way that,
I have got a couple.
Oh, Sean has something to add. Go ahead.
go ahead, Sean.
I don't know if it's the right setting or not, but what constitutes a call for service in the eyes of it being reported to us as such? Because I've seen those sheets before, and of all the numbers, the only thing that me personally cares about, especially in the role that I play within my own department, is what is an arrest, a citation, or a report. Everything else to me doesn't really matter.
So that's a great
So
question.
what's being reported to us? Are directed patrols being reported to us as calls for service? Because that's not a call for service.
Could you say those again, Sean? An arrest, a what, or a what?
So he said.
I want to know what was cleared in arrest, what was cleared citation, and what was cleared report, and that's really all I care about, personally. I mean,
Okay. And for those,
not to say that not the other stuff's important, but I know that, you know, in a day-to-day shift, I can do 20 things, and maybe one of those I actually wrote a report on. The rest of it doesn't really matter.
so is a report more of a significant incident for those of us that don't work law enforcement?
So this came up before
Correct.
with the commission, and one of the ways that came up was response time. And so we had them pull, is my understanding, the sheriff's office, I believe, calls them security checks. So for example, they're stopping by Honeysuckle Beach to make sure that everything is good. And that will generate in their computer-aided dispatch system a call, and then it instantly gets cleared out.
Yeah.
So it appears that the response time was 2 seconds.
Yeah, Captain Smart did a good job of pulling that stuff
And so
out.
we pulled that out, and so with that came also like citizen calls for service, for example. So we were seeing the top 10, so that we could see those broken out as, you know, business checks and things like that. So I think that that's been cleaned up
Yes.
in that stat sheet, is my opinion.
Do we have to worry about Exhibit A replacing our report? That's what I was kind of getting at, is they have
No,
a,
Exhibit A is not going to replace your report. I think the intent, everything I've heard is the intent is to continue with the data sheet, make adjustments as you wish. For instance, I was able to get some data just for you guys to mull over from October 1st, 2024 through August 31st, 2025. And this, I think, gets to Sean's point, 917 reports were taken. There were 892 cases sent to the detectives. I mean, that I think gets to that distinction of, and I'm waiting to have you kind of clarify that for us. But that distinction of those.
It just boils down to clearance codes, just because I'm intimately familiar with the CAD system, so that I know that
And
the clearance code is really what we want.
I agree with Sean greatly on that, and I think when you referred back to the total number of calls we had, the 22,000.
Yeah.
That included the calls that Brian was talking about, the officer initiated that didn't result in anything.
Yes.
If I drive past the city hall and I say, look, I checked city hall, I drove past it going the other way and I checked city hall, that's how you get to 22,000. A city nearby that's 3 times this size only had 46,000 calls for service for the year, because those are truly the citizen-initiated calls for service. I think what the results is, and just like Sean said online, yeah, I do 10 checks, but how many arrest citations, what did I get out of that? I think that's what we're looking for. And while I think some of it's cleaned up, like Brian said, they worked on that, there's still gonna be the information, mapping some of this data so people know where it is. I teach classes on CompStat where we talk, it's kind of like fishing, right? You ask your buddy, what are the fish biting on? Where do you want to go fish? What time of day do you want to fish? And if we give our officers, deputies, the information on where it's taking place, they're more effective. Random patrols make random results, directed patrols to those types of things. So I think it's the outcomes that we're looking for on this. And, you know, Councilmember Roeder and I spoke that, hey, are they spending the time here? Which I think is an element. But if I ask my son to go out and dig a hole in the backyard and it takes him 10 hours, but it takes me 1 hour to dig the same hole, he's not as efficient as I am.
Yeah.
And so I think we have to look at some of those as well. And again, that's not to demean the sheriff's office. I know they're working on stats and they have great staff over there. I think it's how we're getting that. And I think we could look at other nearby cities and what stats they have reported and kind of pick and choose, because even though we're on different systems, The system in the city to our west is the same vendor and the same data is pulled. The city where I work, it's the same system that the county's on. So if you go on that city's website and look at those things, all of that come out of the same CAD system. And I think it's probably worthy of all of us looking and picking and choosing what we want, because it's all available.
So let me I just want to run down the list of the different data points I was given, and you guys tell me or discuss what's important to you. So reports taken, arrests, cases sent to detectives, citations and then total citations. The difference is you can have a citation out of a stop, but there might be 3 citations issued. So you only get all of them if you pull total citations. And then there's number of traffic stops. Do any of those points?
They're all good points.
Yeah, good
Okay.
points, yeah.
But I got one question, Fonda.
Sure.
How long have you had this data?
Oh, I just got it. I've just been working on it since we were tasked with negotiating with the sheriff's office. So
This data would have been good for us coming here today.
that's why I wanted to get it for you. Give it to you.
Well, we shouldn't have to take a gun to go get it.
Yes.
One observation I have, first of all, qualifying myself, I defer to you guys because it's your profession. But I always wonder, like, how much does the bill go up the more we ask for data? Because at some point.
I don't think we're just, well, that's a good question.
I just want to say, ask, is it cost prohibitive to ask for certain types of data versus others? Okay.
No, and even with this, we were talking about who, I know Councilmember Roeder said are dedicated. City of Hayden has a number designated for this district. So the report can be set up, we want to have this information for this district, they press enter and it's all generated, regardless whether it was one of our dedicated deputies or if it's a deputy that is sent over to handle that call for service. We then gather all of the activity that occurred in the city of Hayden. It would be much more expensive and time consuming just to go deputy by deputy. So if we request information based on just the city of Hayden, it makes it very easy. And the monthly reports, literally, they're all in the system, they're built once, and then you just change the dates.
So
of
it just
when you-
requires somebody to press enter and then it's generated.
And that's the piece, I mean, back to your question, which is valid, how long have I had the data? I've been trying to pin down, what can we get? How easy is it to get? Let me have a menu of options to bring to the decision makers so the decision makers can decide what's important for them to see and how often they want to see it. So yes, I would have loved to get this out to you ahead of time. I've been working up until yesterday trying to get it all squared away to give you some ideas of what can be available to you.
And I can tell you, the sheriff's department, I obviously professionally work with them, and their command staff has been actively working on getting these stats and creating them for the city.
Yes.
One other question is, when you read off the number of, I forget what it was, but it was 30% of the total.
That was total calls for service.
Right. And I was kind of like gobsmacked by that. And you guys.
I think these guys explained, yeah.
However, there's another piece to this, and this is totally an emotional response. It's not objective. You often hear, the bulk of law enforcement activity is at certain particular locations within
Hotspots.
Hayden. Hotspots. Is that something worthwhile to know?
I think that should be on a map that we get.
And I think it's on your,
on the
your sheet,
current-
your
it's
crime
on the current
stat
report.
sheet.
We only got the.
Well, we asked for top 3.
Those have been made public, it's not a secret, it's Walmart, Super One, Honeysuckle Beach, and
Thank you.
Animal
I didn't want to go that way, but that was
Animal
my,
control.
because I hear Raleigh say, I moved here because the crime is low.
We
But
don't
then-
have crime here.
Yeah,
This is petty.
I know, but then you think about what happens
I
at very
I
specific
think those numbers are skewed because she said that we account for 35% of the entire call volume for the county. And when you remove all the directed patrols and security checks, that 35% is going to plummet.
Yeah, I think it'd be important to ask,
Well, I think the numbers are slightly inflated just from the outside looking in.
you could be right.
That's all I want to
Because
say.
you're saying, and I agree with Sean, if we're saying that Honeysuckle Beach is the number 3 compared to the shoplifts and all this stuff at Hayden, Sean hit it on the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, the important part of getting, it's not so much the bulk of the data, is the accuracy of the data.
Correct.
And the question always is, what do we want to do with the data? Why do we want this data? And we want to be able to map and look at trends.
Yes.
You know, we're on trends for the future. Are we getting enough coverage? Is it based on a population increase? So it's very important that we don't need bulk data, we need accurate data specific.
I think that's a valid point, and I'm hoping to get some direction from you guys as we build this level of service accountability to say, this is the data we want, here's how we want some proof that it's valid, and here's how frequently we want it. Ed, did you?
Yeah, a couple things, and I think we just hit on a lot of these 35% points. In my mind, they're patrol. That's what you do, is you drive around the city, you look. And part of your patrol should be going down to Honeysuckle Beach and driving and looking at City Hall and looking at spots that are known to be potential areas of concern. And to, data point them in. Again, the term was inflate. I guess that's the one I had, and it's not right. It was padding type of thing. But the reality is, when you look at the top 10 calls for service for June, animal problems. Number 1, fire medical. Number 2, citizen assist, accidents, welfare checks, alarms, civil service, DUI, custodial, VIN. Of those top 10 calls, and it's not petty, but I mean, it's not aggravated assault, it's not murder, rape, burglary, residential, stuff like that, vehicle theft. When you look at those numbers,
It's a nuisance.
There's no.
And of the animal control issues and the medical calls, I appreciate the fact that a deputy is going to those, but the first question is why? And then the second question is what did you do there? Because you're counting for it and you're throwing it at us like, hey, this was the number 1 and 2 things that they did this month, and that's fine, but what did they do there? Did they just stand and wait for the patient to get loaded?
I doubt they went to them.
I go to medical calls, I don't really do anything.
They create medical, at least the CAD system, it creates a police medical call and a fire medical call, and the police medical call is automatically taken away unless there is something that says there's something criminal, but it still gets counted as a call for service unless it is filtered out. So that's why I say we have to look at the numbers, because I doubt the deputy responded to more than 3 out of those 289.
right.
So what do you guys want to
It's the
do?
clearance codes, period.
Yeah,
It's
what do you
clearance
want to
code.
do with animal control if the sheriff's office doesn't handle it? I mean, you have options there, you maybe want to talk about that.
Well, couldn't that animal control be considered in part of our justice funds?
So we could take a deep dive into that and take a look.
I mean, barking dog at 1 PM during a football game could upset the neighbor, but it sure as hell is not going to be a call for service.
So Raleigh, to that, and I don't want to get too far ahead, what I'm hearing you say is when we get to the money part, it may be worth discussing. I know options 1 and 2 have a animal control officer that might not be desirable. I do have a question for Lisa and Fonda at this point, since we're talking about potentially adjusting our monthly report to arrest citation report as opposed to just any self-call. Is that something you all can work out with Captain Smart, or is that part of the new contract process?
I think we can work that out with Captain Smart directly.
Okay.
Because I think it'll take some tweaking. I mean, we'll make some adjustments based on direction here, and then you'll look at that on a month and you'll say, well, maybe I want this or
Right.
something different.
Exhibit A is just to acknowledge what has been happening and to ensure that should the direction of the city want to maintain that at least contractually we've agreed to that. Now, if we want to change that for the sake of a long-term relationship going forward, I would say, yeah, we would want to maybe hone in on that. But for this next year, I think this captures what we want to do, and I think it's okay, and in the future, we may want to renegotiate that section.
So for clarity, Lisa's looking at the bottom of Exhibit A where it says the county shall provide monthly reporting to the city that includes summary level information regarding crimes as tracked in the sheriff's office software in both the monthly and yearly tabulations. Police initiated versus all other initiated calls for service. So I think that highlights the discussion you've been having. Hot spots for crime in the city, top 10 types of calls for service for the month, response times as currently calculated by the county, and any other information requested by the city that can be tracked with the sheriff's office software. So I don't know if you guys wanted to make adjustments to that language at all. We'd kind of gone through Exhibit A and nobody had any concerns with it, but
again, this exhibit it isn't the forever going forward, it's just the acknowledgement for the current year.
Right.
I think the language is fine, because I think this is gonna evolve over time, and if council chooses maybe a subgroup of people working with Captain Smart, the undersheriff, things like that, as they develop a better understanding of the data that can come out of that and work on some of those things, because I think, like I said, it's gonna evolve.
And I think we've seen that evolution with that one pager that goes to council and commission, and I believe is posted on the website.
This is an acknowledgement of something that wasn't currently in the contract and making sure that we at least going forward have it, because the current contract doesn't stipulate what the reporting requirements would be. And so honoring what has been going on was where I had requested, when it said city requested that was part of my ask in the development of the contract.
Mostly for the commissioners, a little bit for council. Is there anything else we need to talk about reporting before we shove off to the money part?
It's something that Dave Hagar mentioned about, it's a lot easier to track any of the deputies coming in paid and try to track each one individually. And I know that in our last workshop with the county and with the sheriff, I'm going to keep pushing for tracking of how much time is spent in our city. And the quote by the sheriff was, well, it'll cost millions of dollars to do that, to track it. And that was during the workshop. But I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the county does have the ability to track time.
They have the capacity to track time. The difference is how they do it and how it's input. For example, when a call comes in, it makes sense to say, hey, a deputy can only be assigned to one call at one time. So there's calls that come in on the screen that start at 10 a.m. And the deputy goes to take care of that call. They finish at 1 p.m. They've had 3 hours in the city dealing with that call. They go to the next call. Well, what they can also do is assign that deputy to multiple calls, and they get to it when they get to it. And that is one of the downfalls of the system, is you have to back information out. It's there, but it does take time. I don't think it's millions of dollars, but it's gonna take time. And at the end of the day, I don't think that necessarily just a bulk amount of time really gets us what we need. I think it's really the results of that. Because you could have that deputy that says, I don't want somebody else to come in and take this, I'll get it when I'm done. So it's their way of acknowledging that I'm assigned this. So it looks like they're on 2 calls at the same time or 3 calls at the same time. So in that 3-hour period, if they're assigned to 3 calls, that shows up as 9 hours and 3 hours. So they would have to change the way they operate in order to do that. You have to understand, the Spillman system is, well, it turns 30 years old in January. It's 30 years old. It's archaic. It's basically a DOS-based system. And while it has the capability to do things, it's not like any of the other apps or systems that you currently use. And to get a new computer-aided dispatch system and CAD, all the RMS system, is millions of dollars for the county. And so it does have the capability. That's just not as easy. Some of these other measurements are actually going to show us better, because again, I go back to the analogy with my son in the hole. Yeah, Dad, I was out in the backyard for 10 hours, I dug that hole. Well, it only took you an hour, so how about you not go out tonight, that type of a thing. So respectfully, they can do it, but I don't think it's gonna give us the answers that we want.
Well, and I think the other example I've heard, I don't know if it was in this group or not, was you don't really want to capture the time for the guy who's sleeping on graveyard behind the store.
That's why it's the action-based.
Yeah.
They can do it.
Oh, yeah, you don't want to big brother it, because that's a slippery slope.
Can I make an observation at this point? We are talking about accountability.
Yes.
Okay, so I remember when this was brought up like a year ago, and Captain Smart said, well, you remove sort of a level of trust when you start doing the kind of a tracking that is leading to a measure of accountability, and I understood that. But at that time, we were working under a contract that wasn't so black and white in terms of cost versus service. Now we're going to something where we're having to pay more for a specific amount of product delivered to us. And I start to feel like if that's the way the county wants to go, then it's probably not unreasonable to ask for also a report on accountability. My concern has always been what does that do to the particular deputy or to the law enforcement force in general if we start asking for accountability? And
The officer's tracked from the time that he turns the MDT on. They know where he's at, they know how fast he's driving. He's being tracked.
Okay.
Now, the accountability that we're looking for isn't him. He's not our problem. If we have a problem, it's an administrative. Further up, somebody that says, well, we're just not going to fulfill that contract that way. We're going to do it the way we want to do it. That guy's going to go and do exactly what he's told to do. So, and I sat here and watched my units moving around in Texas when I was up here on vacation. It's legal. But I could see them, so everybody sees them. And if I get into the captain's car, if he's got an MDT, if he's smart, he doesn't. But you see everybody that's on duty, every vehicle that's moving.
so question back to
The
you.
biggest thing is you just got to understand that the profession is based upon trust.
Exactly.
So I can leave a directed patrol open all night long, and it looks like I was doing something all night long, and I could not be there. It's about trust. And if you start diving into the GPS and tracking and this and that, and all you're going to do is demoralizing to the deputy who worked so hard to get the job to now just be thinking that he's not trusted to do said job. I mean, there are ways to do things, and then there's ways to not. And I think that if you wanted that, I mean, it's very easy. Again, they can leave calls open all night long that mean nothing, and it looks like they were there, and they can tell you that they were there, and that's it.
I have a question. I have a question for all of you who have quite a bit of law enforcement experience. If you have results-driven data presented to you, do you guys believe you have enough experience to evaluate that data and know whether or not you have enough number of deputies or whether or not you're being provided more than what you're paying for? I mean, do you think that based on the results-driven data, you can adequately assess the level of service being provided?
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah,
Okay,
once you establish a baseline.
Yeah.
Then you can tell.
okay.
So my follow-on question to that is, since the Councilman Roeder has been so emphatic about this issue, do you think that the results-driven data would satisfy him in terms of knowing that our Hayden tax dollars are being well spent?
I think if we get the right reports, huh? I mean,
That's all
I'm
I
going to
do.
tell you that CDA's website will tell you exactly what went on, where it went, and the outcome and the results. We're just not getting that.
So we can focus there and start getting that to you monthly with that, and then maybe the commission also would talk about evaluating that more often than quarterly also, because I think the bulk of all of the law enforcement experience for assessment of the data is in the commission, right? Not the council?
Or the staff,
Yeah.
for that
Yeah,
matter.
and not at staff level either. I mean, as Lisa said to me a number of times, I cannot and will not be the chief of police. I hear her loud and clear.
Fonda, I think to empathize with Matt, though, I mean.
Yeah. Well, and I
it's-
think Matt needs to
There's a,
comment for us.
there was certainly a level of accountability that we've been working on
Yes.
together with our partners in the sheriff department. But now that the Board of County Commissioners have upped the expense terribly, it becomes more important, and it's not meant to be an undermining the trust of our law enforcement professionals, but of the accountability the city is demanding in return for the
Right,
basically doubling or more of the cost.
sure.
It's not personal, it's business.
Yeah,
Which is the point I
Okay,
was
Godfather.
trying to make.
yes, sir.
But even the results-based things, for example, let's say that somebody gets into a fight in Hayden. They go to the Cooney County Hospital and they make the report there. The address is gonna show as the hospital. The deputy is going to leave Hayden to go to the hospital and take that call, and they could be there for hours and hours waiting for some medical. So again, not to go against what Councilmember Roeder's saying, but the data is as clean as it can be, given the exceptions. And when we try to drive too deep into something, that's where you find the exceptions. And you could have a 10-hour shift it's called the one call wonder, because it was this mess of a case that you're not here, because it turns out the suspect lives in Rathdrum.
Right.
So after they leave the hospital, they're gonna go to Rathdrum. And so if we did GPS or something like that, they're not gonna show that they were in Hayden for more of an hour than their 10-hour shift, but they were working on a Hayden call.
Right.
So that's why I go back to what Sean and Councilmember to my left said, is that it's the results that we see out of this. I think we can dig into that fairly quickly, and you can make some good educated assessments.
So that came up in my conversation. I conversed quite at length with the undersheriff about how to build this data so that council felt like they were getting the level of service data that they needed to support the amount of money being paid. And I kept talking in terms of hours resourced to the city of Hayden for that exact point, because it might not occur in the city of Hayden. I mean, the courthouse isn't in the city of Hayden. So how do you make sure you're capturing the time resourced? But I think I'm hearing you law enforcement professionals say, results-driven data will get us there, or should get us there if it's accurate.
All right, so with that,
Key right there, if it's accurate.
Yeah, if it's accurate, that's all you really need.
are we good with accountability now and move on to finance, which I think will be
I
the,
have to defer to the group.
That's what I'm
Are there
asking.
more questions?
I think I've heard from the four of you plus Sean that the data is already available there to be sifted properly and to show accountability, yes?
Yes. We just need it. We just haven't been able to
And
get it.
who and what will be the definition of that data? Who's gonna, are they already set up? Do we just tell them we want X, Y, and Z, and then that will be good enough? Or do?
I believe so. There's, again, the different cities that use it. You can say, hey, I want this report that comes from this city, or I like this graph that's over here, I want this, and then we can bring that together. Because I will tell you, there's some of this stuff in the reporting that I do in my own city that I don't use as much as I do the other sheets, because it's unique and I don't use all that data all the time.
Yeah, but the four of us are accountable to the citizens.
Right, and I think once we get that set up, we can bring it to you, and it could be another workshop where we kind of go through, because it's like, I'm not a sports person, so if you gave me stats for a baseball game, I would have no idea what those things
Yeah,
mean.
copy
Run,
that
bat it
one.
in, I don't know what that good, bad, or the other.
Yeah.
But I think once we get that, we'd be more than happy to sit down and kind of share what that looks like, so you can read the anomalies.
I think that's great.
Matt,
So maybe
are you
get the
good with
data
that?
monthly, but give you guys like 3 months worth to evaluate and digest, and then bring it to council with your opinion.
And we could even do a monthly, just a quick summary to council with what we've seen, and then I don't think that we'd have an issue with that. And then that every 3 months, we could sit down and say, hey, here's what the trends look like, here's what we're seeing.
how is that gonna overlap with what the sheriff is going to modify / our current report?
Well, I think it's taking their report and, I almost said dumbing it down, but that's not what I meant.
It's like getting the raw data.
Summarizing it into kind of what makes sense, because every now and then you find anomalies, like, for example, child abuse went up in 2022 through the roof in every agency. Why? Because the state code changed, and so that's where that went. I'm trying to figure out, in my own agency, we're down 51% in our forgeries this year, and I have no idea why. And I want to find out, but it's an anomaly, and so we've got to go through and find out, did anything in the law change? Did the county attorney's charging standards change? What has changed there? So those are the things that we would look at monthly and say, wait a second, why was this up or why was this down? And we could dig further to report back.
Well, it's the same as the misdemeanor arrests went down dramatically after the Clark
After the
decision
Clark
by the Idaho
decision.
Supreme Court.
Right.
And most people didn't understand that. We had to explain it at length for years.
Right.
So Fawn,
I
are
want to
we,
answer your question.
Are you good?
Where I was very uncomfortable with is to look at the stats that were coming to us and evaluating what level of service are we getting. But time, I can understand. That's why I kept pushing for time. Now that we have the experts to say, this is what, because it still begs the question, if some point, and I know this is going to go in the future here, but if some point, if we take on our own police department, I'm not going to elaborate on this. I just like to know, how many deputies does it actually take to provide a level of service to protect Hayden? And I know that we're supposed to have 10 dedicated ones for our current contract that's expired, but then we've now let go for another month. But But we also, the citizens of Hayden paid $2.5 million to the Justice Fund, which also gives some kind of level of service, along with the dedicated, and that's where we get into the financial aspect of it. I've asked the question of the county, how many deputies do we get? It worked out that it was $600 and some thousand of the Justice Fund was for deputies, based on the portion of taxes that we pay, the Hayden citizens pay. And so that worked out to maybe 5 deputies. But I asked them, how many deputies we get through direct funding from the citizens of Hayden to the Justice Fund? We can't tell you.
Well, the jail gets it.
It's none.
Huh?
It's
Oh,
none.
so we're paying to the Justice Fund and we're not getting any deputies from that?
I don't think so.
So if there are questions related to the Justice Fund, I think that need to be.
I know, but it
Yeah.
relates to our, the financial part.
Well, it does, and that's what I want to know. Are there questions related to the Justice Fund that you as a group feel must be answered before you could work on options 1, 2, and 3 of your 1.054 million you've already committed for law enforcement services for the year?
I don't think they must be for us to proceed any further, but I agree with Matt. The patrol line, I think the Hayden citizens pay, what, 5 or 6 million to the Justice Fund, and of that, the percentage is 600 and some odd thousand to the
26%.
patrol line. Now, if our current contract of 954, suppose he gets us 10, so that's 600, let's make it easy, 6 of 9 is 2/3, and if we're getting 10, then we should be getting, what, 6 deputies related to the Justice Fund, and when they sit there and tell us, oh, no, it's for bare minimum service. What?
So-
$600,000, because we do pay into the jail, and they do pay into the prosecutor, and they do pay into all of these other line items in the Justice Fund, so it has to factor in to this service contract.
So if that's going to be the case, I'll need to know what specific information that you need to have in order to make a financial decision, number 1, so I can work on that. Or number 2, can we work on the fact that you've already approved 1.054 million in your budget and work on Exhibit A, and then get these Justice Fund questions answered after the fact? It's got to be one or the other. You're either impeded from making a decision until you have these answers, or you've already budgeted an amount, we hash out Exhibit A and get answers after that.
I think if I'm understanding Councilmember DePreez and Councilmember Roeder's question is, if we were to cancel the contract today,
What's the level of service
what's the
provided?
level of
Yes.
service that would be provided
Right.
without having a contract? And if that's the level of service, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, if it's 3, 6, whatever that base level is, and above that, I think is what they're asking, and that's probably a fair question to ask.
And I think for the group, we should know that as a group, because I know I personally have been told a couple stories. I still know what the truth is, so I think that's an excellent
That's
data
exactly
point.
it, Dave.
So,
Best way.
I asked that question if it could be reduced to a number, and I was told no. I was told if the city of, and this is just the response, if the city of Hayden wants dedicated enhanced policing for its city, it needs to be paid for one way or another. Sheriff's contract is just one option. They would get emergency response only.
For 600 and some odd thousand.
And what is determined as a emergency response?
Life safety.
So cities are, by law, are treated differently than the rest of the
No,
county?
it's the Constitution, and I'm not a lawyer. But
Thank you for disclaiming that right
I've
up
been beat
front.
up by plenty of,
I don't know that you want to get into a philosophical discussion. I need to have nuts and bolts to move this forward. Do you need an answer on the Justice Fund before you could proceed on a financial discussion? Okay. If I hear consensus on that's a no. We can have a financial. I'm not opposed to when you finish the financial discussion, let's circle back and give me pointed questions that you want answered that we can go work on.
And what's the authority for those answers? Is it going to be Idaho law, what the sheriff says, what the BOCC says?
It's probably going to be a conglomerate of just harassing people until I get what we need.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how that.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's going to be worse than a circular conversation we've had on overhead.
So are we ready for Monty Hall here? Door 1, 2, or 3?
Do it.
just door 3 and only 40% overhead.
I heard wow, that was fast.
Well, can I?
Yeah,
before we get
please. Well, oh, wait, and I need to say one thing first. When we first got this spreadsheet, just if you all remember or if you saw it, it had each of your deputies with their different total payroll burdens on it. So you ranged from 110 to 179. One of the things that Lisa and I asked was, okay, how do we know if the $179,000 a year deputy leaves and gets replaced by 110? So can we just have an average payroll burden cost of a deputy for plug and play on the number? And they did concede to that. So this,
Respective of their role, so there's
Yes.
different groups, so you've got patrol, you've got detectives, you got animal control and command staff.
and command staff. So they are averaged for the different classification of provider.
Okay, now I might be off on this, but, you know, we had the discussion about the actual calls for service data point of some are, you know, showing as 35%. And then we talked about, well, wait a minute, you know, they're plugging in all of these extras, I'm gonna call them padded. But did that 35%, is that reflective in the overhead rate? Did they use that to develop their overhead rate at all?
So what they really did on the overhead is they took all of the overhead that is involved with the sheriff's office, and they said, this is all of what it costs to support this number of deputies and this command staff. And they took that and they divided that total by the total number of deputies, and they said, every deputy costs us X number of dollars to support them. And then they said, and if you have a certain number of deputies, that means you're a certain percentage of the overhead. That's why it doesn't, so they didn't really base it on calls for service. That came back around later in trying to work on the accountability data. It was referenced that, well, you're about that percentage of calls for service anyway, so the overhead makes sense.
That wasn't from the auditor's office.
Correct.
And let me be clear, because there is a YouTube video where the auditor does explain the overhead amount, and it's really valuable to go listen to. And in sort of the summary level information outside of what Fonda presented, they go through and recognize that, you know, when we're talking about overhead, you might not be precise and you might not be completely accurate. So there's a degree of how much each officer uses, and so there's assumptions made. And they recognized, in her testimony said, that if she was precise and accurate in her numbers, we would be about 62% of the overhead costs attributed to each officer. But in order to provide an acknowledgement that we're not challenging every line item expense in that as being accurate or precise, that going to 40% honored the sort of ability to kind of give and take, right? So they're saying, well, we know you're something, but, you know, we don't necessarily want to prove out 62%, but we think that 40% gives us that latitude to say if we're right or wrong, we've got wiggle room. And that's how 40% came. When I asked Commissioner Matari about the 60% justification, I actually asked the auditor, because I figured I was going to get circled back to that anyways. And the auditor simply said, pointing me back to Commissioner Matari. So his response was confusing, I would say at best. I don't know that we're talking at the same, his conversation, and I'm not saying he's inaccurate, I just didn't understand it necessarily, because it had to do with being in the car business, and I didn't, comparatively over what the auditor did, which she did a very good job of building the case for the overhead. I got lost in the translation of how it was presented from the perspective of Commissioner Matari. So with that said, I can't tell you why 40% is here other than what the auditor said. And I certainly can't explain why it goes to 60% with any justification that makes sense to me. So I'll leave it there.
Back to the FTE, if you look just for comparison's sake at option 1 and option 2, and you look, it says 40% overhead on each one, but the number's different. Option 1 is 452,000 and option 2 is 433. That goes back to their saying it costs us X number of dollars per staffed position in overhead. So the more staffed positions you have, the higher the overhead number is.
No, it's based on the hard costs.
Correct. Now, I'm not saying it's accurate. I'm just trying to explain why, even though it says 40%, on option 1, you have a higher payroll burden. So they're saying that higher payroll burden, that higher level of service costs more in overhead, even at 40%.
So with the overhead, if we do a budget and you have 20% goes to something, you want to identify what that 20% is, and there should be like 10% miscellaneous, and I don't think we have to get into that. But I'm looking at option 3 just because it's the easiest one to calculate. There's 4 deputies and a detective.
Correct.
And so if you divide the overhead by 5 personnel.
It's a percentage, though. I want to make sure our finance director has a better, probably could explain it better. It's not the total cost of overhead divided by 60%.
Sure, I'm just trying to figure out where we're getting the overhead number from, because it comes out to about $76,000 per employee that we're, so where is that overhead? Because I could see they have to have supervisors, they have to
I can
have
print off the report.
We
that they
have- we
They
have-
sent us a spreadsheet
We
if
have
we're talking
blank
about the same thing.
Piles of
And they
spreadsheets.
include all their, you know, they go to their training and their retreats or whatever. Some of the lights and all this other stuff, and I'm sorry, but I looked at it and I'm thinking, what? I mean, you look at the numbers that they gave for each of those that they attribute to it, and I'm
It's
just,
an overhead rate also, it's not an overhead percentage.
Sure, and I get that, it's a rate though. It's gotta
Sandy,
come
do you have a
So they
question?
calculate their
Yes.
overhead cost and then assign a rate to it based off of FTE. So they took all of their overhead, added it all up, divided it by the FTE, and then multiplied that by the FTE to get the rate.
Yep.
So with the option number 3, that gives us 4 deputies and a detective. If that overhead rate was to be negotiated down to the 40%, could we have another deputy?
I think you could. I did some rough math, and I do think you can, if they will agree to the 40%, you can buy yourself another deputy.
But I think that in
It's close.
their own word, or well, I shouldn't say that, it's not the board, it's just the conversations I've had with Commissioner Matari is that that is essentially option 2, and they want the cars as part of that.
they want the cars.
They want them. I don't know how many cars we have. I've heard 5.
Lisa, it might be really good for the public record as well as for the commission to have a better understanding of the car. What we have,
It's right at the bottom of the sheet there where it shows
oh
the
yes, it
2
is.
that were purchased and the depreciation provided, and then the 190, though they have not, it's my understanding, and I could be wrong, but it's my understanding that they have not received those vehicles yet. They didn't purchase them until we paid for them, and the lag time to get them was
So the 190 was paid by us in our 2025 contract for the purchase of 2 vehicles that we haven't received yet.
that they haven't received.
They haven't received yet.
I'm confused here. We purchased the cars, and yet I've watched their meetings and stuff like that. Are they depreciating our vehicles that we
Correct.
purchased?
Yes.
How does that work? How
They-
can,
they-
they didn't buy them.
They're applying the same depreciation value that they do their own vehicles. And I think,
We should be depreciating them if we purchased them, shouldn't we?
Well, they maintain them, they
We maintain them, but.
we didn't purchase them, we funded them.
We funded them for the county to own them.
Okay.
How about I put it that
So
way?
we're losing that depreciation basically to them too. They used our dollars to buy them, and they're getting the depreciation value out of it.
Because they're doing, I guess, because, I don't know
Well,
what.
maintenance is a different thing.
Yeah.
Depreciation is a tax, item.
It's how you plan for its replacement. So if you're depreciating it out and you have a 5-year turnaround, which is their time frame that they have, then you know that essentially you have to either save for that in a 5-year time frame after it's depreciated off your books.
Do we have the VIN numbers and serial numbers?
They're on here.
all the
They're on the
equipment?
bottom of your sheet.
I see
Oh,
this.
2 of them.
Two.
yeah, the 190, oh, your sheet is so small. The 100,
There's
need a
extra,
magnifying glass. The 190,000 is for 2 cars that aren't here yet.
How many cars have we bought since Moby Dick was a minimum?
well, these are within the last 5 years. So if they're over 5 years, they're depreciated off the books, so they don't show up. So that's how I understand that
That
from
is
their
correct.
auditors.
We have 3 and 2 that they haven't received yet, is that correct? Okay.
Well, I see 2 here.
I see 2
I
here.
heard 3, and
There's the third year, it's in the red, it says third FY '24 Hayden vehicles being used for Hayden SRO. We don't have an SRO anymore, do we?
No.
That was for FY '24, so
So there should be, that's 3 cars, and my understanding is
And
that we
there's two.
funded 2 more, they just haven't received them.
that's correct.
Yeah.
Is there any way we could reach option 2 with the 10 deputies?
Where you gonna find
I'm
it?
sure, and credit for the cars,
That total cost-
Four hundred and sixty-seven
or
thousand
keep the
dollars.
cars.
And then that cars go away, so next year, where are you gonna find the money?
Exactly. If we don't keep those cars, then we end up spending even more money.
It's I think, now, this is probably not in order at this time, but here it comes. You know, the first and foremost thing we need to do, and Matt's brought it up before, and it wouldn't make any difference if it cost $25,000, is get citizen input. Do you feel safe in your home? Don't confuse the issue with how many law enforcement officers do you feel we need? How many helicopters or any of that? Do you feel safe in your home? Do you just feel safe while you're operating your motor vehicle on the streets of Hayden? Get the basic information, and are you prepared as a citizen to go to $3.5–4 million? You gotta find that out sooner or later. We're just hiding under a rock now.
So can I answer that? I think that's definitely part of the puzzle for the long-range planning, but we're really trying to negotiate how to get from here to the end of the calendar year. And while doing that, we will plan on those things that you talked about, because I think that's definitely.
Okay, so in that planning that you're talking about, these cars play a role.
Yes, and that's why I've said that I would like if we could figure out a way to keep the cars that the city's already purchased.
So, question I have, if the sheriff keeps the cars, who pays for the maintenance and the gas?
That's part of the overhead.
It's
that's
in the
built
overhead,
That's
they're
gonna be
doing that,
included
yeah.
in that's factored in.
We'll be paying for it.
Okay.
It's just it's not a direct cost. And I think that there was some early conversations in a previous version that had those as direct cost to us, but we pushed back and said, you're double dipping. It's already part of the overhead because we showed that.
Are there any undisclosed costs that we could anticipate, or is this it? Because we've had the sheriff say, this is the amount it's gonna be, and the next year it's double. So do we?
I think that's the hope is that they're giving us accurate information. Their own testimony by their own commissioners was that working directly with the auditors will give us that information. So I have to assume that this is the information. Now, if the conversation over the overhead in option 3, let's say, actually, I'll just say, if the vehicles are removed, I don't know what the position will be and the argument that they'll make relative to the purpose of overhead. Because
Sandy, to answer your question, could you do option 2 and keep the cars? The cost of that is $1,787,861. So I don't think anybody really answered your question.
I have a question for the public, for you guys. Do you have any sense of whether, regardless of what we stated in the last levy, do you have any sense of whether our city needs 10 deputies versus 4?
Well, I don't know, that's what we told them. That's why we convinced them to vote to add those additional deputies, so we would have 10.
Yes, I understand, but I'm asking you, do you have any sense?
We don't have enough data to know. I don't.
I think, and Tom, that's perfect. That leads back to my previous question, which is, does the experience in this law enforcement group, do they think that with the data-driven results, they can properly evaluate the number of deputies needed? And I think I heard a resounding yes.
I have a question for Raleigh. In the absence of that data, a lot has been spoken about different law enforcement models of X number of law enforcement personnel per 1,000. If you guys, last time you looked at it, said 10 was enough, and Hayden said grows to 20,000 in the next 5 to 10 years, should we at least have 20 law enforcement supporting us?
If the crime statistics show that, and the type of crime.
So I would say one of the most recent factors that we look at is the amount of available time that an officer has to be proactive. If all you're doing is what we call chasing the radio, you're not getting in front of crime. We shoot for 30% proactive time, 30% assigned from citizen-based calls and the reports associated with it, another 30% training, administrative, vacation, sick, those types of things, and then there's kind of the 10% miscellaneous. And so I've worked with my city, other cities, and then you say what the current state is. And if you're at, say, 20% proactive time, you want to increase that. So for every officer we add to patrol, how does that then break down those numbers of what it takes to do something until you get to that 30%? I can tell you the Coeur d'Alene's at 1.71. The last time I did some analysis to Post Falls to the west, they're at about 1.45, but they also don't have NIC. They don't have some of the other things. We don't have some of that here. The lowest cities that I've seen and worked with are in really bad shape, and they're hovering at 0.75 officers per thousand.
And you say that's bad shape.
That's bad, that's bad. Most effective cities are no less than 1.2-ish per thousand. But again, that's a horrible number, but it's because of what the proactive time is and what they have.
David, I asked that question for two reasons. One, looking ahead, which I know isn't for today. And two, and I did the math, Sandy, I show that if we get the option 3 down to 40%, we can afford another deputy with $5,000 to spare. But my concern is if we do drop from currently, which is 10 to 5, are we taking a risk to the city? You know, if I'm a criminal and I know that Hayden has just halved its police force, I might spend a little more time in Hayden.
I don't think that. I don't think the criminals pay that much attention to that. But part of this whole thing with me has been, and it's why I really advocated for the 10 deputies, is I went on, here you go, broken record time, folks. I went on several ride-alongs, and especially in the evenings when they got a call, and we'd have to go somewhere to a domestic in particular, and they would sit there 20 minutes after they arrived because they're waiting for backup. And so that my big thing was we need 2 on duty at all times because of backup. You guys who are involved, you don't want to go up to the door alone. You don't want to go into situations alone, you know, where at times, that 20 minutes, who knows what's happening? And that's dangerous to the city, and that's where I think the liability is to the city. So we promised these people, we promised the citizens 10 people,
Yeah,
10 deputies. And if we drop down to 5, you aren't going to be able to schedule 2 deputies per shift and stuff like that. So we're going to be right back in the situation we were in, where we had deputies going to who knows what is happening and sitting, and rightfully so, for their own safety, sitting and waiting, knowing who knows what's going on for 15, 20 minutes before a deputy from the outside gets there.
I was on a ride-along not too long ago, and it started out not as a domestic, but just as a dispute between 2 apartments on a parking space. By the time we finished, there were 4 deputies and a supervisor. I mean, that just wiped out just about all of Hayden.
Was that required though, John?
That
was
wasn't
their call.
I
required.
mean, I'm not questioning the sheriff's calls. I just,
Well, you know what? That was
seems like a lot of people.
Seems like, well, I was surprised, but they had to back up, and then a supervisor had to get involved, and there was a ride, you know, it was surprising that, one would think it wouldn't take that much to make it happen or correct the mistake, but it did.
So what I see as the toughest question that we need to answer tonight is the balance of how much money we're going to spend and the number of deputies we're, as a group, willing to accept.
I would add one more math piece to Councilwoman White's question. If you remove the animal control from option 2,
Yep.
it's $1,700,114 with keeping the cars and not taking credit for the cars. I know you were asking how much would it cost? So to maintain 10,
Well, I
because
was
that's 10.
asking if there was any way we could do it to keep the 10,
Yes.
because that's what good faith
have
with the people is.
Looking at options 1 and 2, at the very bottom, it says additional funds needed from Hayden. 1 is 535 and 2 is 467 to meet to basically meet their numbers for there, as well as the cars.
That's with the credit, that's correct.
Right.
I was gonna say, you're gonna
So
add
within the cars,
270.
And they want 467, and so what's the shortfall?
It's not a what they want.
Okay, it's the requirement.
Options are, the cost is if you want.
Okay.
What they're
Okay.
saying is if you want this level of
Right.
service, this
Okay.
is the cost.
So we give them the cars, and the option requires an additional $467,000.
Right.
So where do we get that this year? And then as Raleigh just said a few minutes ago,
Where's it
that's
coming?
just this year. Next year, we don't have the cars and the
1.7,
credit,
yeah.
and where are we gonna get the $467,000 from if we wanna maintain
I got a
that?
couple of hundred, but that's it.
Yes,
I mean,
Tom.
the answer is
So-
fund balance.
Well, that's where it's coming from now. How many times can we go to the fund balance?
I've heard Raleigh say, let's go with option 3, kind of under his breath. Sounds to me like you're not there anymore. Is that a correct statement?
Well, what I'm thinking, it depends on what we want to achieve. You know, I'll use your analogy that I raised 4 kids, and if you've got $1, that's all you have.
Yeah.
You know, you don't go get a $5 item and put it in the
Put
bank.
that aside, just,
Well, I'm talking money. As far as the exposure for the officer, if you're talking about officer
Yeah, yeah,
safety,
yeah.
it's not as safe for him. But, and I probably won't be agreed all the way around, but the 1.5 works in places like LA and Detroit and Houston. And we're not quite there yet.
no, that's,
At
I
one
think
time,
25
the
deputies.
sheriff said that he wanted 26 here.
He doesn't want
Can
that
we,
anymore, though. I know
We
that.
do a poll, go around the room, and based on the data we have and based on the discussion, everybody gets an opinion on, do you want curtain number 1, curtain number 2, and whatever
I'll keep score.
modifications do you want?
I'm not sure yet. because I'm relying on you guys.
Let me bring
What's
out
your
one thing
opinion?
that I think sometimes I've heard is overlooked, because when we're talking about that, we're not just talking about patrol. When the sheriff talks about 26, that's everybody. And I know that Fonda mentioned that it was 340 hours of detective time a month, and so 160 hours, 320, so we have over 2 full-time detectives that we don't see on the streets of Hayden until it's the follow-up for the calls. So that 26 is the total number of patrol deputies, detectives, maybe they're gonna assign somebody specific to traffic, and it's basically, how would we create a Hayden Police Department with 26 deputies? Where would we put the priority? We don't have a gang here, we don't need a gang detective, right? But we have traffic issues from time to time, so we might want to assign somebody to that. So I think when you look holistically at those numbers, it's more than just what we're getting, because this is just patrol deputies and 1 detective, and that's how that is, because this goes deeper out into that. There's a sergeant that we're not paying for that's reading all the reports and sending it to a detective sergeant that's then assigning it. So I think that's probably where some of the overhead comes from and some of those types of things. And I agree with Raleigh, if it's my checkbook, I don't know where I'm gonna come up with $500,000, so I go to option 3 as a look, but I think if we look at it, 10 deputies is still honestly not enough for the 15,000 people that we have here living in Hayden. We're gonna want that more than that at some point in time in the future.
If we can get to, what I made notes is that we get the overhead to 40%, because should be no difference, I don't see. And the vehicles, credits, if we took those, and any surplus money, I guess we could put toward next year, because we're just digging a hole we can't get out of.
Yeah.
And when you talk about officer safety, that's a very important part. However, there's just times you gotta wait.
Eventually, we're gonna have to go to the voters.
There you go.
Yeah, that's
We're
what
gonna
I
have to
first
make the
thought.
case,
Yeah.
have to make the case, you get what you pay for.
Right, but we're trying to solve this year.
I was gonna say, but yeah, for this year, what's?
For this year.
Maybe,
Yeah.
John's got a point. Maybe we should just go around the table and at least as a starting point, so we have something to work with, because if all but one says an option, then that's probably where we're gonna go. Are you guys good with that? Matt, you wanna kick us off?
Matt likes to go last.
Or do you want to kick us out?
Matt, what are your thoughts?
At home, I looked at, reality in my mind was option 3. And I don't think that there should be a differential between option 1, 2, and 3 as far as overhead. It should all be 40%.
Okay,
So I support option 3 and 40% overhead.
And then that would actually, the adjustment to option 3, it would give you an additional deputy.
There we go.
Well, it would be helpful to understand your position on the vehicles too, since it's a component of these options.
we keep the vehicles.
Okay, Brian?
I have so many thoughts.
Just a preference.
I'll say option 3.
Okay, any issue with the overhead in the cars,
Yes,
which is?
it's excessive.
So keep the cars and knock it
The
to
overhead
40%?
is excessive.
So
in
it's
my opinion.
40% on the overhead?
Yeah.
Matt, did you say 3?
Matt said 3 with 40% overhead.
Raleigh, what are your thoughts?
I wish I had never gotten on this committee.
Raleigh, you're a treasure trove. We're happy you're here.
I've been most comfortable with 3,
Okay,
and as far as the cars, I hang on. If we can get, and then 40% on it over there, if we can pick up another deputy in that deal, that's good,
okay.
you know?
John?
Option 2, and the elimination of the animal control officer. And I would go with the contract credit for the vehicles.
So you want to ditch the vehicles?
Yeah, ditch the vehicles. And I do think we need 10, unless we want to go back and explain to the people that voted for it why we're not giving them what they voted for.
Okay. Ed?
Yeah. Well, again, I keep on, I think we're getting extorted on 1 and 2, plain and simple.
Okay.
And the 60% is a reaction to the fact that, okay, you're not going to give us the cars, we're going to raise the overhead rate on you. We did promise the people 10, okay? And the county knows that, okay? The county, I believe, the county wants those cars because they know that we're seriously considering a possible alternative. And if they had the cars, that's $500,000 worth of assets that we would have to dig up if we did decide to go another way, which makes it just that much more difficult for us to go another direction. I don't want to go to 3 because it only gives us 5 or so. We promised the people 10, okay? We have been hamstrung because we were told by the sheriff one thing, and now the commissioners are saying, too bad, we've got you by the neck, and you're going to do it our way, or we're going to cut you down to 5 or so. And let you explain that to your people. Okay, bottom line is, we're going to have to go to the people for a reset of the base tax to either ask them, is 5 good with you? Do you want 10? And if you want 10, it's going to cost you about $2 million a year.
Oh, at least.
Right about there. And let them make that decision. We aren't going to be able to make it because otherwise, how long can we raid our reserve fund that is really our savings account for so many of these other projects that the city needs?
Yep.
Okay, I don't want to give it, I've watched those meetings. I don't want to give it to the county so that they can give their employees COLAs and not have to go into their reserve account. And if you watch it, that Commissioner Matari asked Brandy, whatever, what happens if Hayden leaves? And she said, well, for about a year, we'll be able to go into our reserve, but then, because everybody's subsidizing us,
Yeah.
they would have to probably lay off people because they didn't have the money or the cars from Hayden. So who's subsidizing whom? So the bottom line for right now,
Okay.
as much as I hate to, I don't want to give them the cars. I
Okay.
don't want to raid our reserve or savings account. I'm going to go with 3.
Okay, and I assume 40% and keep the cars, yeah?
Yeah.
So real quick, before we get to Tom,
Tom, you've been such, what did you do?
I know
Fingernails.
that it's come up a couple times. This is what we promised the voters, and this is, of course, before Tom or I joined, and maybe some of the commissioners too. You know, philosophically, I don't think there's any harm in going to the voters and saying, this is what our intention was, this is what things cost, but that's not the case today, and it's the truth. We're not putting a spin on it, we're not, doing rhetoric. And we just tell them, this is what was, but this is today, it's no longer the case. And although we wanted to, our base budget levy override was to serve this purpose at this time, it doesn't fit anymore. Just some food for thought. So Tom?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, reluctantly, I want to go with option 3, but with a caveat.
Okay,
I want us to own our cars.
okay,
I don't know how we'll negotiate them down to 40%. If they would agree to it, that would be lovely.
okay.
And to keep the cars, we'll have to raid the piggy bank, but I think that it's better to keep the cars than give up.
I think with option
Well,
3, we're
option 3,
keeping the
you do
cars.
keep the cars,
Yeah, we're
because
keeping the-
options
Oh,
1 and 2 give
really?
you credit
Okay.
for them to have the cars.
I misunderstood that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, good.
I think one thing that needs to come out someplace in this deal is we got in this position. Jimmy Jumpback didn't get off the bus and come in here and tell us what the deputy was gonna cost. I didn't, nobody here, none of those 3 commissioners. The sheriff himself gave us the number that we took to the public.
Yes.
And that should be all for you guys, because you just followed what the elected official told you.
Well, but it's a little deeper than that, Raleigh, because even the year that passed, since then, the BOCC has increased the salaries and the costs of law enforcement. So I don't pin it so much on the sheriff as just, again, times have changed, costs have gone up. As stakeholders, that probably could have been communicated to us a lot earlier and a lot better so that we could prepare.
Well, and also the numbers given were based on a model of services that is not consistent with the model of service they're asking for now.
That's right.
And that's, I think, the big change is
Yeah.
whether or not the numbers at the time were accurate, they probably were. The model that's changed, driven by the BOCC, is a cost for service model.
In fact, Lisa, wasn't it, I think the BOCC has raised the salaries of the deputies 46%
I
or
don't
so.
speak on behalf of them, I have no idea.
Well,
For the last X
And the
years.
sheriff and the board of commissioners.
Right, so the point is, all that costs money, so.
Okay, but in concern of what we promised, promises made, promises not able to keep, is that we took honest numbers, and it wasn't from one of us on a commission
Yeah.
or somebody that got off the bus out here.
Yeah.
We got it from the county, and that's what they wanted to perform this task. And we fulfilled it.
Right.
And just to, well, wait a minute, actually, we're waiting.
Yeah, I was waiting for
You have
Sandy to
2 more.
vote.
Okay, I'm in the hot seat now.
Only 2 more.
Okay, so the levy,
Sorry, Sean.
the base budget levy passed in '22. And since then, we have not been increasing what we've been giving to the county for the sheriff. And so this looks like a big jump, but it should have been gradually increasing. You had been talking about this in your Public Safety Commission meetings, that we needed to be adding to it. And we haven't, so that's why this looks like a drastic jump. And I would like to backtrack a little bit and say on July 29th, we had a budget that we passed that would have paid for option 2.
Pass the budget.
And we presented those numbers to the county commissioners, and they were working with those, and then we decreased it. And so I'm saying that we had this. We had number 4, and I want number 2. We had option number 2. We had it in the bag, and then for some reason, it got, the amount being given to the sheriff was chopped up, and now we're blaming the county for raising the costs when we, all of a sudden, hamstrung them. And so that's, I would like to keep my promise to the people of 10 deputies, and so.
Will option
that's
2
where I stand.
give you 10 deputies?
Yes.
So Sandy, just for clarity, I respect your vote is for number 2. We actually have increased the amount that we've been giving to the county for the last 4 years to the point, I think it's double or triple. We have significantly every year given the county hundreds of thousands of dollars every single year.
Went from 440 something to
Yep.
the base increase 543, which brought it up to the 954, which we gave it 10% for
Yep.
26 to the
Yep.
1.049. So every year.
And we've been giving
we went-
hundreds of
we almost
thousands.
50%. We went from 4 something to 9 something.
But you did the base budget levy override between the
Well,
600
we
some and the
increase
900
it
some, yeah.
each year.
The point is, it's gone up.
954 to the current offer or budget amount, and it wasn't an approved budget, it was an amount that we offered of 1.049 for this next year.
It was a
Well-
published budget.
So Dave,
So I would ideally like the 10 officers that we promised the people.
So Sandy, just for
So-
clarity, so is yours the 10, so we remove the animal control and do credit for cars or no credit for cars?
Well, I think realistically, we cannot find that extra money at this point in time. So the option 3 with the extra officer and the 40% is the realistic.
Oh, I was talking about on your option 2 vote, is that to keep 10, because there's 11 on there. Did you remove the animal control officer from that list?
I don't know if.
I would like to do option 2 just to be able to keep my promise, but I think that,
Oh, that was not your vote, I misunderstood you.
yeah,
That's what
but I
apologize.
think that, I don't know, to move forward right now and
Okay.
to get a contract and have something,
I understand,
we
thank you.
have hamstrung ourselves.
I misunderstood you.
so you're an option 3 person, Sandy?
She voted option 3, I misunderstood.
And I assume you would request that Lisa and Fonda compel the county to reconsider the 60% to 40%?
Yes, and one
Okay.
more officer.
Yep, and David, last?
Wait,
No, I-
can we,
Oh, sorry, not
answer the
last.
question about the cars? Because I know you want to move fast, but we're moving fast and missing certain details.
Okay.
So Sandy, if you could give your opinion about the vehicles.
Vehicles, I would need more information on that.
I think the vehicles are
So option 3
part of
has
option
us
3.
keeping the vehicles,
Yep,
are
but
you okay with
We've asked
that?
specifically for them to vote on that line item, and everyone else has done it on option 3, so I'm giving her the same credit
Okay.
or opportunity.
But David's still here.
We also have Sean.
Yeah, and I
Yeah, we
keep,
have Sean.
Sean's up there.
yeah,
Hell, he's asleep probably. Probably worked all night.
If they have the vehicles, they're gonna use them for Hayden, right?
We would assume that.
Yeah, I would,
We don't know that.
but that's not included
So
in
option 3 has the city keeping the cars and not taking a credit and relinquishing them to the county, as drafted.
I don't know, could we do option 3 and give them the vehicles and get a couple more officers? Couple more deputies?
I think you're paying with one-time money at that point in
Yeah.
time.
Yeah,
That's
he's
the
done.
thing about all
this.
Yeah, this is all one time, you gotta do the whole thing over again
Okay.
next year.
So option 3 as is?
With the 40%
Yeah, with the-
and one
agreed.
more deputy, if we could do it.
Yeah.
okay, David.
You know, I wasn't a councilman.
And then I'll get to Sean.
That voted on this, and I realized that there was promises to the community with the number of officers, but I think there's also a promise that we have a good fiduciary responsibility with what's there. And I think I go back to Raleigh wanting the input and to you wanting the input from the community of what do we want to go forward. And I don't know how responsible it would be to add another almost $500,000 without that community input to go with that. And while I don't think we're gonna have chaos and things that erupt by having a few fewer
Crime wave.
deputies. It would be nice to have the number that the city had promised. I think the only option fiscally responsible right now is option 3, and again, keeping the vehicles for that.
And
40%.
negotiating down to
Negotiating
40%.
down to 40% to get that extra deputy.
And Sean, I'm so sorry I overlooked you. Would you like to give us your thoughts?
As unfortunate as it is for me, like I want the 10, but I have to concur the responsible things to do is 3 plus 1 deputy and getting the overhead down to 40. However, these cars are a big point of contention for me, just because I want to know where these numbers are coming from. That being said, the city needs to figure out what to do about cars so that we're not in this position moving forward, because it seems like that is that's the part that is the big contention here, especially when you're looking at the
Okay, so am I understanding you correct? Keep the cars, option 3.
Keep the cars. Yep, keep the cars, option 3, negotiate down to 40%, add a deputy, that'll give us 6, and then do some serious digging on figuring out how to get some more cars.
Yep, and that was my next question. So to the group, quickly, because some of you did say so, some of you didn't, at least I didn't hear. If we have the money, would we ask Fonda and Lisa to squeeze out an extra deputy if they're able to get the overhead rate down to 40%?
Or less.
I wrote down everybody's responses included if there is 40% is accepted, that we would add another deputy.
Okay, I didn't catch that.
I'm gonna probably drop just a little bomb in the middle of the table.
Oh.
It's not a big one. If there's an overage of 5,000 and you had money in your budget for a lieutenant vehicle that you know you're not gonna use, would you be interested in trying to add one more deputy with the use of that money and maybe a little extra funds?
Yes.
Yeah, that
Yes.
money was already budgeted for that car, correct?
It's in the
budget.
general fund for the car and
We
it's,
didn't take it out of reserves.
no,
Correct, it's in
that's
the
correct.
budget.
It is in the budget.
So, yeah, that.
So we're taking that lieutenant cost out.
Yeah.
It's just a
I-
question.
I apologize, I wanted to be the first one that jumps, but that scares me because the car thing is so volatile. In other words, it's, if we were to ask the county to purchase another car for the city, it adds to a problem that we already have 5 of.
No, I don't think it's purchasing a car. I think it's using the money that we would have
Oh,
allocated.
I'm sorry, to a deputy?
Yes.
I apologize, I
Yes.
misunderstood.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes, it was 95,000, correct, Lisa? On that line item?
Yeah, I think that sounds about, 90 to
Taking
95.
that money, plus you might have an additional 5,000 if they accept the 40% available, that'd be 100,000. You might have to come up with 25,000 out of your
get
fund
us to
balance,
6.
and that gets you to 6.
I like that.
I'm just leery of using one-time funds to fund a position that, then how are you gonna fund that next year?
like
It's just to be my.
Well, it's
Well,
not.
it's in the
This
budget.
isn't,
We haven't purchased the car yet.
It was already budgeted.
It's already budgeted, so
About
it's,
next year.
But
it's still be in the budget.
To answer your question, if it's the 25,000 is a very small fraction and I would be comfortable doing that for a couple of years, but we obviously have to plan in terms of what the future looks like and going to the voters with another,
A real number.
I
Yeah.
don't want to go to the voters.
You got to go.
So that,
we have to.
Ed, can I just want to
I'm holding a bomb and it's gonna explode.
what's different now?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, so that gets you 6 deputies plus a detective, if that is accepted. And then I do want to circle back to, I still think you guys want us to drill down to what's the
Oh.
actual level of service on the justice fund. So if you're reporting to the public, you can say you may, that you have this extra other additional level of service that's paid for through taxes. Did I hear that correct?
I think so.
So respecting John's option 2 preference, does staff have enough direction at this point?
Oh,
I wanna-
Yes.
Just that question we would pose to the county about the justice fund, and the answer I got was, we can't tell you. Well, then, where's that money going? There would be a follow-up to say, if you can't tell us where that money's going,
We don't give it to you.
Give it back.
where is it?
I agree with you, Matt. We have some ways to get to that. What I'd like to do, if possible, is since you've done so much work on this, why don't you and I meet? Let me see the information that you have so that I'm not doubling up, and then we'll work on that piece.
So you're going to try for 7 deputies? Is that what you're trying for?
Well, so option 3 has 1, 2, 3, 4 built in. We're gonna hopefully gain another one with the reduction of the overhead to 40%, and then gain another one, which would be 6, by the reallocation of the lieutenant car fund money
Okay,
to this contract,
plus the detective that's there.
and then you have the detective
That would
also.
give us 7.
Yeah, yes, correct.
That's a little more hopeful.
Yeah, I agree. They'll never see the detective.
Ed, sorry, I wasn't.
Well, that's fine.
They'll never see
Tell
it.
it, before I drop the bomb,
Don't, please.
Well, it's a reality, it's a reality here.
Well, hold on, before we drop the
No.
bomb, can I just get a quick answer? Does staff have,
We got enough to go back.
You got enough?
I have
Go back.
lots of notes.
all right, so go ahead and drop away.
Okay, the first question, and it should be a real quick yes, no. Is there anybody here who doesn't think that based on the statute, the statutory elements of anything more than 3% increase, we have to go to the people, and the finance, to fund whatever it is down the road is gonna be more than the 3% increase, so anybody here doesn't believe we're gonna have to go to the people if we want to?
I think that's out of order for this. We
I'm
established.
just asking a question.
We established a
There's no
baseline at
order
the
to this.
beginning
This
that we
is
weren't
a
going to talk
workshop.
about that.
Yeah, we're just
And
workshopping.
so we should
Okay,
all
I think we all know the
honor the
answer.
same
Okay,
answer.
here's the
same
bomb.
question.
What
We should all
happens, here,
honor
what
the
happens
same-
when?
All right, one at a time.
I had the
Wait,
floor.
it's this,
Time out.
if this ever has to be
Yeah,
transcribed,
one at a time.
cannot talk over top of each other.
How you doing,
Has the
Abby?
floor, and this was agendized for a workshop regarding the law enforcement contract. I don't think it's out of bounds to have an additional question about the law enforcement contract. It doesn't mean maybe everybody has to answer.
The
It
rules
might-
were laid out ahead of time that we weren't going to discuss
We
that.
we cannot talk about the utilization of any other specific law enforcement agency to provide the service, given the potential conflict of interest. You are correct. That was the rule that was laid out.
Okay,
So we cannot talk
Here's the
about,
bomb question.
All right.
What happens at the county when we say we want to go down to 40%? Says no way.
we'll come back to you.
Yeah, let them come back.
Then we gotta-
We'll bring it back to you and you can decide what you want.
We'll have another special meeting
Yep.
with our
Right, okay.
favorite commissioners.
Yep.
Mayor, before we, sound like we're maybe concluding here, but just to let you know, and it's just, in March of this year, I contacted the guy that did the citizen survey for the city of Hayden, that we have the results, and I asked him if he could do another survey regarding law enforcement in Hayden. And he said yes, and the price is about $15,000. So we can, because we can't wait very long, if we're gonna move forward and try to anticipate what could happen next year, we're gonna have to start this process early. So I just
That
want to
don't sound like
mention
much.
that we got the guy.
All right.
No,
Anybody want to make a
it's a waste
motion
of money.
I'll make a
Oh.
motion.
to
End.
adjourn?
Adjourn.
Oh, we're not making a motion?
Yeah, we're not adjourning.
No, you're only,
Your council meeting.
pause.
So sorry.
You got another one.
We need, yeah, so we've obviously,
We're just taking a recess.
yep, we're gonna take a recess, and then, city council will, join us at 7:05, where we'll make a motion to potentially go into executive session.
Wait, the executive session wasn't on the agenda.
It's on the agenda.
Yeah, it's on the agenda.
It was added yesterday.
And for the public.
Okay, our next item in this special meeting is an action item to potentially move into executive session in support of Idaho Code 742061B and Idaho Code 742061F. Is there a motion that would?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and second. Any discussion on the motion? Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember White,
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer,
Yes.
Councilmember Dupree.
Yep.
Council President Roder.
Yes.
Okay, now we can move into executive session. For everybody in the audience, safe drive home.